DevOps is a significant cultural change. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I think one of the core aspects of going through a DevOps transition within a company is addressing culture. Culture is something that, Peter Drucker once said, he's a famous strategist, said that, culture eats strategy for lunch. So even though as a leader within a company, you may want to, look at DevOps as a new approach to innovation, if you don't address the cultural aspects of it, it will likely have an unpredictable outcome and most likely will fail based on my experience with real-life customers. So culture, typically what you're looking for, DevOps culture, you want a highly collaborative, high sharing of information culture. We've already talked about how we break down teams and bring the organization together and avoid organizational barriers and try to minimize handoffs and try to do a fast flow. So culture comes in where you want to share information. There's some research done by Dr. Robert Westerroom, who studied high-performance teams. And one of the things he was looking for, what are the key markers of a high-performance culture? And one of the things was the flow of information. The flow of information, like I talked about earlier in a DevOps process, whenever you understand and learn something and apply the scientific method to gathering data and making an hypothesis and drawing conclusions from that data, you want to use that and share that not only locally to address issues or learn about how the system operates, but share it globally. And so the flow of information is the key marker in sort of subdividing cultures. And if I could spend a minute about talking about those typology of cultures that Dr. Westerroom looked at, one was called pathological culture, and that's a culture where information is considered an asset on an individual basis. It's used as a mechanism for gaining power and political advantage within the organization, and obviously is not shared where it's needed to the appropriate individuals to make sure the company meets its global missions. So that was one type of culture. There's a culture called a bureaucratic culture, and most organizations fit into that type of culture. And this is where information is shared amongst the group of people. Maybe it's shared within operations or development, but it's not shared across groups, and it's not shared with the right people at the right time so that we can make global changes to provide the outcomes we want of the company. The culture we're looking for, in the term he uses, is a generative culture. A generative culture is one where information flows freely throughout the organization. The organization, everybody knows the mission, they know the goals of the company, and they share information with the right people at the right time and make sure it's relevant. And this leads to an organization of high trust. Trust is a distinctly human emotion that actually is manifested within the limbic part of our brains. It's not the neocortex human part of our brain, it's the animal and reptilian parts of our brain. And it's a feeling that you have when you understand and you believe somebody will take care of you in times of need and allow you to experiment. And DevOps at its core is around experimentation, and we know these systems are very hard to understand, and failure is an inevitable outcome of what we do in our daily work. So we're trying to create safe work. If we share information with everybody, that leads to people being able to feel comfortable in failure and dealing with it and not trying to hide it, not share that information across the organization. So creating a high performance team and a high trust culture are some of the hallmarks of what a DevOps organization is required to do, and to move away from the pathological and bureaucratic organizations that are predominantly found in most Canadian larger organizations.